One, two, three, four.
Hello, you're listening to the SKYLIT Books podcast series. We are a general interest independent bookstore located in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles, California. This year, because of the coronavirus pandemic, we've had to close our store and cancel in-person events. But SKYLIT is your neighborhood bookstore, and we are finding ways to create community even while we're far apart. In the coming weeks, we'll be putting out lots of new audio content to help you discover new books, connect with authors, and check in with your favorite booksellers. To learn more about how you can help keep SKYLIT alive, please visit our website at skylitbooks.com or check out our social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram. You can subscribe to the podcast on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Thank you for listening and enjoy.
Hello, lovely listeners. Welcome back to SKYLIT. This is the SKYLIT Books podcast series, and I'm your host, Maddie Gobbo. I'm the events manager here at SKYLIT Books. Good news, we are open again for in-store shopping 11 to 7 on weekdays and 10 to 8 on weekends. We're still asking that you wear a mask, socially distance, blah, 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 all that stuff. But we're very happy to have our doors open again after our second COVID scare. We came through okay. Nobody else contracted it. Everybody is symptom-free and tested negative. So that's great news. And thanks, as always, for sticking with us through this bumpy ride of a year. All right, so today we're going to have a great conversation. I'm really excited for this one. Clover Hope is here. She's going to be talking about her new book, The MOTHERLODE, with Nadeska, Alexis. They're going to be talking hip hop and women in hip hop. I want to give them a formal introduction, and then Clover's going to read a little, and then the two of them will have a conversation, and then I'll come back and we'll say our goodbyes. All right, so without further ado, Clover Hope is a writer and editor based in Brooklyn. Hope's work has appeared in the pages of Vibe XXL, Billboard, The New York Times, Wired, Essence, and The Village Voice, among other publications. She is currently a contributing editor at Pitchfork. In conversation with Clover is Nadeska Alexis. Nadeska Alexis is a music journalist and writer who is well known for her hip hop reporting. She has made a name as a highly talented music journalist by working with networks such as Complex and MTV News. Her popular works include Everyday Struggle, Rap Fix Live, and Complex Conversations. And she is currently the host of R&B Now Radio and the Nadeska Show on Apple Music One. So just a few words about the book. The MOTHERLODE is about the 100 plus women who made hip hop. It has fantastic illustrations by artist Rochelle Baker, and it highlights more than 100 women who have shaped the power, scope, and reach of rap music, including pioneers like Roxanne Shante, game changers like Lauryn Hill and Missy Elliott, and current reigning queens like Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, and Lizzo, as well as everybody who came before, after, and in between. Some of these women were respected but not widely celebrated. Some are impossible not to know. Some of these women have stood on their own, and others were forced into templates. Some have been trapped in strange critical space between respected MC and object. They are characters, caricatures, lyricists, at times both feminine and explicit. This book profiles each of these women, their musical and career breakthroughs, and the ways in which they helped change the culture of rap. I should also say it's a beautiful book. You guys got to check it out. Look at the illustrations. It's just something that you want to have in your house. So, Clover and Nadeska, welcome to the program. I'm so excited for this conversation, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, for having us.
Do you want to take it away with a short reading from the book?
Yes. So I'm going to read the Roxanne Shante entry. And Roxanne is widely considered the sort of first solo female rap star. And a lot of that was based on her song, Roxanne's Revenge. This is the beginning of her entry. Between the years 1984 and 1985, the rap world waged an ongoing battle, the Roxanne Wars, or what the Washington Post described as a neo-feminist watershed. The only attacks happened on records, beginning with UTFO's Roxanne, Roxanne, produced by the R&B group Full Force, who performed as backup dancers for the rap group Houdini, known for Freaks Come Out at Night. UTFO's song was a big hit, but it only grew into legend because of Roxanne Shante. The subject of Roxanne is a fictional young woman named Roxanne who shoots down UTFO's advances. Baby, don't you know I can sing, rap, dance in just one show? Kangol Kid raps. On a record about catcalling, each of the 3 UTFO members tries in vain to woo Roxanne. Roxanne Shante, then going by her given name, Lolita Gooden, responded to their song with a 5-minute diss track addressing UTFO's flaws as Roxanne's revenge. You thought you was cute, yeah, you thought you was a prince, she raps. It was like the subject of a painting, jumping out of the frame and coming to life. Shante, known for battle rapping around her neighborhood, didn't yet have a stage name. In battles, I was rhyming for 30 to 40 minutes, so 4 minutes was nothing for me, she told Billboard in 2018. I stuck with the storyline, and the next morning I was Roxanne. It would have been ambitious enough for Shante to make history with a diss track calling out a group of male rappers. But what's most impressive is that she did in New York, became a pre-viral sensation before rap was on TV and before the world at large recognized female rappers. It wasn't just one back and forth. Roxanne's revenge inspired a generation of MCs and amateur rappers to dump a rich, random tapestry of diss records aimed squarely at Shante. From Sparky D's Sparky's Turn, Roxanne You're Through, to Crush Group's Yo, My Little Sister, Roxanne's Brothers. Even an alleged child named Takanika targeted Roxanne in a song titled I'm Little Roxanne. So that's the beginning of the Roxanne entry about her foray into battle rapping and her basically being a pioneer of the sport of battle rapping.
Clover, I have to say congratulations on writing such an amazingly comprehensive book, because as someone who's been reporting on hip hop for so long, I'm ashamed to admit that I learned so much from this book. There are a lot of amazingly talented women rappers that I did not know before reading the Motherlode. What was your experience writing it? Did you stumble upon some new artists?
I did have that same experience. So I'm glad that people are having it, because I think it's probably a result of me having that discovery process, like while I was reporting it and researching and writing. Because like similarly, like I've been writing about hip hop for like over 15 years, and there were, you know, there's still blind spots. Like there were still women, like I did not know their name. I did not really know about MC Shyrock, who was, you know, considered the first like prominent female MC, you know, having started doing hip hop back in the 1970s, like when it was formed in the first place. And, you know, I didn't know about certain struggles for artists like JJ Fad, and kind of like their, you know, their kind of like pop rap sound being something that they kind of had to contend with as artists. You know, it was a discovery process for me, you know, while I was working on it. One of the biggest was probably with MC Shyrock and like that, you know, debate amongst like the first group of female MCs, like who came first, like who should get the title. Like I had no idea that was happening, and it was like very quietly happening, that they were, you know, trying to get, you know, insert themselves into the narrative of hip hop in some way by trying to kind of like claim this first title, like who was the first solo female MC, who was the first, you know, female MC, and you know, that was their way of kind of, you know, wanting to be noticed and wanting to be part of the story in a bigger way. So that was something I hadn't known about. So I feel the same shame, and I think it's probably good because, you know, it shows that, you know, there's a learning process happening.
Absolutely. I think, you know, over the course of our careers, we learn from other writers that we admire, and also from stories, right? Working in the industry, right. You have a lot of conversations. For example, working with Sway, I'll hear stories of artists you worked with, and that's a lot of the way that I learned. But I feel like some of the stories about women just aren't as prevalent. So was it actually easy for you to do the research and find the facts and the details about these more obscure artists?
It wasn't easy, but once I did start talking to them, it was, I think because they wanted to share their story, and maybe they hadn't even done interviews in so long, like someone like Entice, who I had to kind of track down, and like she's in North Carolina, like she's kind of doing a different type of music now, like more kind of like motivational hip hop. and isn't, you know, she was down with, you know, Wu-Tang in the 90s. So someone like that, I kind of, you know, I had to track her down like through like her cousin on Instagram. There's no, it's not like she's on Twitter, and,
Right.
you know, so I had to kind of do some back channeling. And so that part was difficult, but then once I kind of got them on the phone, you know, their stories just kind of like poured out, and it was easy to kind of like, you know, take you know, like kind of take what they experience, and kind of for some of them I just let them tell it themselves, like, so some of like Entice, that's an as told to, so it's like all her own words. People like Charlie Baltimore, when she kind of started telling her story, it was kind of like, oh wow, some of the stuff I didn't know about her working with Irv Gotti, doing, you know, like writing with Irv Gotti, and like that whole backstory. And so yeah, it was kind of it was difficult to find people, basically, just like, where are you? It was a big like, where are you now, kind of project.
Well, I'm glad that so many of them were able to share their stories with you directly. And when I use the word obscure, as I'm thinking about it, I don't even mean it in a negative way, because I think, you know, especially in Black history and Black culture, there's so many amazing untold stories that I hope over the years continue to be uncovered, because so many people were impactful, even if, you know, they weren't necessarily as popular as superstar rappers. And
Right.
once we get to the later chapters of the book, you know, you start talking about Nicki Minaj. I was thinking back on how I grew up in the era watching Missy Elliott and Kim, Foxy, and Eve. But then for a long period of time, it felt like no female rappers were really making waves on the level that they were until Nicki came along. And as you described it in the Motherlode, you said in the time between Lil' Kim and Foxy Brown's heyday and Nicki Minaj's arrival, rap was increasingly a ghost town for women. What do you think contributed to sort of that drought? I'm sure that it wasn't necessarily a lack of talent. Was it just a lack of accessibility and difficulty getting through the doors?
Yeah, I do think there's that. Like, I don't know if anyone has been, it's funny because I don't know if anyone has been able to kind of like answer it concretely. And I feel like some of the explanation for the drought has to come from like the label execs who weren't signing women. Like, you know, why weren't you signing female rappers to labels? Like, was there any talent that you declined, like, for a specific reason? Or, you know, like, how many women were you actually seeking out? But one thing that I think did come up was that it seemed like labels thought women in general, but like women rappers, like, cost too much money. And that was something that I kind of mentioned in a couple entries. And I think like a few maybe label execs have spoken about, as far as like beauty and glam teams. I guess the thinking was that, oh, women like they eat up your budget. But I think we've seen how much that's kind of bullshit, because male rappers today are as obsessed with fashion and image as women, and they, you know, eat up budgets. So
they're the real divas, if we're being honest.
Exactly. Like, they want like very specific, like, you know, looks. So I wonder if that, you know, I'm sure that contributed, and that I would think like this type of trend kind of happens on like a systemic level, you know, like when you know, once it just kind of because the labels aren't making women like a priority, you know, when something isn't a priority, then it's easy for it to then become sidelined. But then a big thing I was thinking about was that I do think people forget how much downloading was contributing to like lower music sales in that mid 2000s era, and people were not buying physical records. I stopped buying CDs at that point. I was downloading music. I was downloading MP3s. I had folders of like
overnight with Napster, hoping that no one called and interrupted your download.
Exactly. And then there was Kazaa, and, you know, now we have streaming services, but during that whole gap, there were no streaming services. Like, I remember being an early adopter of Spotify, like being like, oh wow, this is insane. And it was only available in Sweden for like a while. So you know, so I think that maybe during that era, you know, labels went from like these huge budgets for hip hop videos in the 90s to like then this very like reality check digital music boom in the 2000s. And I think maybe budget shrunk, and if they weren't making women priorities at that time, maybe that contributed to them not signing not signing enough female rappers. Because like you said, I don't think it was like talent wasn't there. It was just, that effort, and they maybe didn't work harder to find them.
Absolutely. And, I certainly want to talk to you about all of these new points of entry that women have now to build their own careers without having to rely so heavily on gatekeepers. But I guess, I think Nicki Minaj has had controversies in recent years, but we really do have to give her credit for, I think, all of the recent barriers that she broke and all the arrows that she had to take for this new generation. And I wonder, so in the book, you reference some milestones in her career. And one thing you talk about is her sort of dipping into this pop crossover in her music, right? And I can't remember what award show it was, Ariana Grande, they cut to her. I think she was like singing along to a Nicki song. It went viral, and that really helped. And I'm wondering if you think her career would have panned out the same, her influence would have been as big if she didn't sort of dabble in that pop world. Like if she tried to do strictly just rap, would it have all worked out as big and as explosive as it did turn out to be?
I don't think so. Not on that level, not on that scale, just because she hit so many kind of corners of the world, I think, by jumping on everyone's records. And then also, I think it's interesting. Like, I don't think it would have been impossible for her, but when I think about the difference in kind of like the 90s and then when Nicki came out, like the 90s hip hop was, just becoming pop music. It was like 1998 was like the year hip hop like surpassed country music as like the highest selling genre, and it was all over the charts. And that was, the era of Puffy and like, DMX, and like rap was like, just pure rap was selling, and it was just becoming pop at that time. So I wonder if like, by the mid 2000s when Nicki came out, it was like popping, all these hybrids. It was, the hybrid genre, or should I say genres were like fusing more. Hip hop, R&B, like rap R&B. You had these like boy band groups kind of doing hip hop and R&B, Justin Timberlake and that whole era. So I wonder if it was, just like a reflection of what was popular music
at that time.
Was like, pop. Whereas, in the 90s, like rap was like, that was popular music, and more was like, rap was still like the top genre, but it was also rap as a hype, like a fusion of things. So I do think that she kind of like had to kind of fall into that, and make songs like Super Bass, which is honestly one of my, I feel like it might be my favorite Nicki Minaj song.
Really? Like, I would never expect that.
I know. I feel almost like ashamed because it's not like pure rap, but I love, Itty Bitty Piggy, and like I love that Nicki, like super, super lyrical rapping Nicki. But something about Super Bass, like it makes me happy. It makes me like, she's still rapping on that song. And it feels like that song feels like this is Nicki Minaj. She is like bubblegum and like pop, but also like super rapidy rap and like bright and colorful, and like knows how to put verses together. Like I don't know. I don't know why I got into like.
No, that's absolutely. I'm glad we just got to hear you gush a little bit. That's making me smile.
Yeah, I just love that song.
No, I mean, I think what she did and her special skill set, I wonder if anyone else could have done it at that moment where she was just that one big female rapper for so long. Because you make such an interesting point about sort of in our heyday when I'm growing up and I'm watching Puff and Mace and all of that, that was pure rap, but it was just so cool and it was so pop. And then Nicki had to sort of come back and lean even further into this sort of pop, even a little bit of like techno electronic kind of world, right? To sort of capture this wide audience and reintroduce us to like what a female rap superstar could look like. And then now, you know, when we have people like Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B and City Girls, I don't necessarily feel like they have to even dabble necessarily in pop music, but I wonder if they could have existed and been as popular as they are now if Nicki didn't dip into pop and just reintroduce the female superstar rapper to us. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like she kind of, in the same way that I guess, you know, Kim in the 90s kind of broke that barrier with like women in rap kind of like showing their sexuality and kind of being brazen and, you know, on making it kind of palatable on a like really global level. I think Nicki did that for women to show, for, you know, just to kind of show like they didn't have to be one thing. And I think that was really important to kind of breaking the floodgates open. And a lot of the women, like I had done some interviews with like Rico and Rico Nasty and like Megan, and like for them, Cardi was like, Nicki was like that kind of inspiration where she showed that you didn't have to be like one dimensional. Like she was sexy and she was like weird and also very rap and pop, and she was like just human and like, you know, I'm a human being. And she was like, you know, all those kind of like things. And it worked. And I think that was the thing, that the fact that it worked and she really did kind of like break out and, you know, become like basically the biggest female rapper like of a generation. You know, I think the fact that it worked was like that. When you have a success story, it's like then the labels want to start copying, and you know, Azalea Banks came along, and then Cardi, and then you know, it just kind of like opened up completely. So I do think we got to give her a lot of credit, because I do not think there would be this kind of plethora of women without her kind of showing those like dimensions, basically. And that was, a lot of that was just her doing, like she wanted to do it. It wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like someone telling her like, you have to do this thing. Like, right. She just wanted to kind of show that, and it really paid off, basically.
And it's so true. And I think, you know, I've heard stories about label executives behind the scene after then watching her success, you know, wanting to just go out and replicate it and find the next Nicki, which is always a recipe for disaster. But, you know, thankfully, there are just so many talented and diverse young women that I don't think anyone's trying to be the next Nicki. They're all finding their own avenues. And I think Cardi B then is, you know, sort of the next example of this sort of next wave of, you know, social media and the rise of streaming, like you mentioned, in reality TV, giving women this opportunity to finally stand on their own and build their own careers without worrying about labels, any male gatekeepers, about having to come up in, you know, we're used to sort of that really strong woman in the all male clique. So do you think with the advent of all of these tools now, you know, has it forever ended any potential drought in female rap moving forward?
I am kind of confident that it has, only because once you create that doorway, that entryway, like that is, you know, and once you create the entryway, which in this case is, you know, social media, that is now an option that can't be taken away unless social media is taken away. Like unless like Twitter and Instagram start kind of like people stop using it and stop like discovering artists through it. Like that's always going to be, as long as they're popular, or even if some other social media platform comes along, like that's always going to be an entry point. And so if it is an option, then we will be able to kind of like pick and choose and like see different women of different ranges just kind of come through, because they can just literally just like start an account and post images of themselves and you know, post their own music. And I think that kind of, you know, independence that comes with just simply having your own, being able to like put out your own photo without someone having to approve it. It's really kind of very simple, but the ability to do that does so much for like a woman in the music business. Not to say that, you know, they don't still have those other barriers of like trying to get stuff done and access and like bigger access, but I do think once this door is open, it's hard to imagine like they're not it's hard to imagine people not continuing to kind of like take advantage of it, you know, like take advantage of that door being open. And
Absolutely.
if there is another drought, it's once again not on the women or the talent. It's like someone is restricting access, or they're not giving opportunities, or like it's some other entity. Because I think people who are talented always find a way to try to like show themselves, and it's really up to you know, the people with money to like take notice. And you know, because you have social media, there's less of that necessary, but still, you know, we still have to like go through certain people, basically.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely with you in feeling confident that, you know, there's not going to be that period again between Foxy, Kim, and Nicki, where it's years and years before we see another superstar. And I wonder too, so, you know, when you're thinking back to the Roxanne Shantays or Kim or Foxy, lyrics have always been really important in hip hop. You know, some artists do use writers, some don't. For someone like Nicki, we know that is something that she takes very seriously and is very personal to her, and she hates when anyone would even dare to, you know, imagine that she doesn't write her own lyrics. But, you know, again, now with this influx of female artists, do you feel like that's also changing? I'm even thinking, we know how Cardi rose up, right, coming up on Instagram, reality TV, and then going on to become a superstar. But even thinking of someone in the past 6 months, like Erica Banks, right? She had a big record. Well, she had a record busted out last summer. And because of a TikTok challenge, months later, you know, that really helped the song take off. You know, she gets a better record deal and things are moving from there. So where do you think, I guess you see in the next few years, how important are lyrics moving forward compared to how they were historically? And do you think it's, you know, personality is becoming even more important than that at this point?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, persona, personality. And a lot of that also has to do with Nicki kind of just coming out the gates, like personality wise. It's really an interesting phenomenon with women writing in hip hop, because, you know, like we all know, ghostwriting was always kind of seen as, or having, you know, someone else write your lyrics. And rap was like seen as this kind of like, you know, like a huge taboo, or like have, you know, just not writing your own lyrics was like, okay, like I can't even take you seriously.
Right.
Even, you know, like compared to other genres, obviously, like no one cares with like you know, pop or R&B that someone's
At
like
all.
not writing.
Yeah.
So but then like at the same time, people always kind of expected that women weren't writing their own rhymes and that was okay or whatever. It was like, oh, obviously, and this was what like Charlie Baltimore talked about. She was like, yeah, everyone just assumed she wasn't writing. It was just like, oh yeah, let's get Cameron to write for you, or let's get, you know, like Chic or whatever, to like write this this verse, because obviously you don't write. So, and it's like, no, I kind of do. So there, it was like kind of both. Yeah, so it's like a taboo, but not necessarily for women. And I think maybe Nicki kind of wanted to like really break that, because it was, or really kind of visibly show like, I am authoring these words, like I am kind of like not one of like women where you can like assume that I'm not doing, like she kind of very immediately shut that down.
Right.
And I think that is you know, definitely less of a standard just across the board. You know, and I mean, I guess people talk about this all the time about how lyrics, I don't know, sometimes it feels like an old person thing. I don't know. Where it's like, no, people don't, you know, rap the way they used to.
Yeah.
But then I think about like, you know, but then like some people make fun of how like 70s rappers rapped, you know, like the hippity hop. And so it's like, it started out like I don't know. It started out very simple and then got complex, and then now it's kind of a little bit more. I don't know if simple is even the right word. Just like more kind of based around. Yeah,
fun
like
and
right,
punchlines
exactly.
and not having to be like mind bending, but there's some
Yeah,
purists who will always be sort of very negative, and then there's a Cardi who's, she's like, you guys can keep criticizing me, but I'll be honest, I've worked with a writer and it's helped me get better. So
right. Yeah, she was
it's
very like transparent. Like, yeah, I have someone else writing. I get money, so leave me alone.
exactly.
Yeah, and I do think that does help open things up. I mean, in general, but then definitely helps like for women, because then it's not that like, oh, you got to be Lauryn Hill, like you got to kind of, because that, as I think for a while it was like people were then once Lauryn Hill kind of like broke out, then looking for the next Lauryn Hill, and it's like that's impossible. So I do think it helps just because it helps everyone. So
yeah, the standards women have to live up to. It's always so crazy. And I have to say, I am so happy that WAP made it into this book, that you were still working on it when that song came out, because just the reaction was so insane. I remember reading a think piece from a gynecologist praising WAP and how important she thought this song was. And then, of course, there were all the conservatives who were super upset about it. So you also talk about Anaconda in the book and how Nikki played this really amazing balancing act between objectifying herself, but also being very firmly in control. And so just remembering the reactions from Anaconda when that video dropped and from WAP, I'm wondering, do you think much has changed in the past few years, like between those records, like in terms of how the wider, and I would say male audience views and reacts to female rappers and their sexuality and the role that it plays in their music?
I think in some ways, but then sometimes I feel like I underestimate how people's thinking how much people's thinking doesn't change, because like I thought things had changed, and then when we saw it with Megan, like just kind of guys kind of coming after her for like showing her body or kind of showing or kind of like her sexuality, and then to see kind of like the reaction to her, and even that, what Jermaine Dupri said about like stripper rap was like, really,
like him of all people, like really you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And it's like I don't know, like you kind of I think the issue is that they're not the ones kind of controlling or like putting it out, because when they are the kind of ones with the keys or whatever, or the ones with the control of the image itself, there's no problem, because they can have women in the videos, and like that's them kind of creating the imagery and the gaze, basically what we call. But when it's not them, somehow it feels like it's wrong to them. I don't know, like it's how is this not like what you're doing? So it's hypocritical. Like I think in some ways it has changed, and then in a lot of ways it just hasn't. I know that's kind of I don't know, it's not.
No, honestly, that's like a very accurate answer, because I just sort of watch in shock sometimes when it's like, as a woman growing up loving rap, there are just certain things that you sort of become a little bit numb to, like, oh God, what is that song? There's a song where someone's rapping and she's wet, blah, 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 dripping down thighs. There's just certain things that I don't necessarily need those graphics, but I'm like, I like this song, I'm just going to keep it moving. But men on the flip side cannot handle it. So I'm going to paraphrase Megan Thee Stallion when she's just like, this is my vagina and I'm going to rap about it if I want. Like, you guys can get mad, because I mean, Cardi made a good point. I did a roundtable with her and a few other artists last year for Apple Music, and she was saying basically these men are, excuse my language, they're full of shit. They complain when women rap too much about sexuality. They claim they don't like it, but then at the same time, when we think about other amazing artists like Rhapsody, who are rapping about things completely different, she's like, then why don't we support them enough? You know what I mean? So, and I think Nicki also told you that she went above and beyond at some point to prove that a female rapper could have a successful album without rapping about sex. So, you know, sex appeal is obviously still very important, but
Right.
do you see a future where we can, you know, see more artists like a Missy Elliott who can transcend that and still become superstars and not have a sexualized image?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, like Missy still like rapped about sex.
But I like it because she's
Like
objectifying men. That's what it always felt like.
right. Right. Yeah, exactly. It's hard because in terms of image and music and like the music industry, just being sexy is so important, has always been so important. Or just being like women, just kind of women in pop, in rap, like across genres, have had to kind of like adhere to like a certain kind of standard. And I think there has to be that person who, I guess, similar to how Nicki kind of opened the gates, like who is going to be that person who will open the gates for women to not kind of have to have the sexuality default, sort of. Because I do think Missy is one of such a rare like kind of example of someone who did, and she had to have such a huge vision. Like she did everything, and you know, just visually, and kind of like she was creative and like writes, produces, sings, raps. Like she has to kind of do like she does everything. And like kind of also came up at that time when hip hop was becoming pop. So you know, I kind of like think about that. Yeah, I do think there needs to be that one person who
can,
I don't know who is, I don't know who it would, maybe like Tiara.
Like Tiara seems like she's on her way. She just needs to be, you know, dropping more consistently and present. But, you know, again, as you mentioned, sort of with the rise of Cardi and the internet, we're still very early in this new sort of, I don't even know what to call it, but like this brand new world, which is like really exciting. So, you know, hopefully 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there's like multiple of them. And we could look back, like, remember in 2021 when we were worried this might never happen, you know? So
right. Yeah, exactly. We'll be on the moon or something. Like, I don't know.
So last thing for you, I thought this was so interesting in the book when you were talking about how monumental the Nicki Minaj and Remy Ma battle was, because it'd been, you know, it was amazing that two women were impactful enough to make that such a big moment that everyone in rap was paying attention to. And I think battle rap, the sport of it is always fun. I think what is messy and what none of us maybe like is when things really get messy behind the scenes. But when you were talking about She There, you said, you know, this idea of females being forced into competition against each other. And I think you were talking about in battle rap, maybe upset some people. And then you noted that Roxanne Shante was actually the one who popularized battling on records with Roxanne's Revenge. And again, that's really amazing. And that's something that I don't know that a lot of contemporary hip hop fans necessarily have in their mind, that it was actually a woman who made this such a fun blood sport, if you will.
Right. And she had everyone kind of responding to her. It was, you know, people wanted to get noticed like through responding to that song. And so it became like, and she was like also on the streets battling, you know, like battling people, battling men and in competitions and things like that. And then, you know, there was that whole showdown that was, you know, I guess what is considered like one of the first kind of like public kind of battle between two female rappers, with her and Sparky D. So it's kind of always been built in. I definitely understand it kind of being, you know, because there's fewer, like it feels like, oh, we're, you know, we're kind of, I don't know, watching the girls are fighting, you know, like watching the girls fight. It's like I liked that Remy and Nikki kind of back and forth, because it was
great.
competitive, and it was like, they were both great lyrically, and I wanted to see what each of them like came back with. And I do think people kind of do turn it into something that's like more catty, and I think that is when it gets annoying, because it turns into not just like a job, like there's it turns into like just like more gossipy, and I think that's where it gets like frustrating. But I just kind of like to say, not everyone has to like everyone, and it's just that because there's fewer women, it just always seems like, it always seems like they're fighting, because it's like, if you only have 6 and like 3 of them are fighting, like then it seems like a lot. Whereas if you have like 100 like male rappers and like 20 of them are fighting, it's like, oh yeah, that's like normal. So it's like, I guess in a way, numbers, like a numbers thing.
It's a very good point.
Right.
But the numbers keep scaling up. So that's, to your point, that's actually like a great thing, so in a few years. And again, it's like, never want any sort of real behind the scenes drama, but rap is very much a competitive sport. And to be honest, like, hearing people actually battle on records is good. Plus, everybody loves a good full circle makeup story. You know what I mean? So we're also there for that to happen down the line. So Clover, I have to say again, congratulations. This is really, really such an excellent book, and something, I'm excited to share with friends and to share with my kids one day, because I think, all of these stories of these women really, really, needed to be told.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad many of them spoke to me, and I could kind of just be a conduit for their stories. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. So Maddie, how did you think? I tried to not just go
You got
too
it.
long and be extra.
Oh, this is so great. Thank you both for this conversation. I really enjoyed it. And I think I'm discovering new artists through this book as well. So thank you so much, Clover, for doing this research and telling their stories.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun. Hard, but fun. It was like fun but hard.
How long did it take you to like get all the research and all the interviews done?
It was like a 2.5 year process, essentially, because it was supposed to be only a few months, and then I was kind of like, I need more time. Like I can't. It was coming together, and it wasn't as like, I wanted to find more people. Some people didn't get back to me till like later, like Bahamadia, or not Bahamadia, Lady of Rage, like MC Sharrock. I talked to her like late last year, because it was like she didn't get back to me for a while. So I'm glad that I just got more time, partly due to Corona. So, but because it had gotten pushed back because of that. But it took a while.
It all worked out in the end, though. Really awesome.
It did, and great timing, because I was worried that I was like, oh, no one, I don't know, who's gonna be after Cardi, and then who's gonna be after Megan, and then luckily we have so many now, like Sweetie and Erica, Rico, and so it's been nice to kind of have like timing, where there are so many women to kind of like that people are interested in. Basically.
So that means you can already start taking notes for the sequel, part 2.
I know,
but give yourself some time.
I know, yeah. I hadn't even been thinking about it, but I think I have to now. So
yes, I agree.
Part 2.
All right.
That was a great interview. Thank you so much. It was,
it was great talking to you. I spend so much time talking to men. It's always just so nice to talk to women. So thank you, Clover. Maddie, thank you for having us.
Maddie, thank you.
Thank you
gonna
both.
do you need an outro, or are you
we'll just do a little we'll just say our goodbyes.
Okay.
So everybody, thank you so much for listening. Our guests today were Clover Hope in conversation with Nadeska Alexis about her new book, The MOTHERLODE. You guys go out there, get your copy, read up, study up. There's going to be a test at the end. I'm kidding. There's no test. But it's definitely worth a read, and it's a great gift as well. So you guys get out there, get your copy of The MOTHERLODE. Clover and Nadeska, thank you again for joining us. It's been a pleasure listening to you today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maddie.
All right. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye. Have a
too.
good day.
Thank you for listening to the Skylight Books podcast series. Please don't forget to visit our website at skylightbooks.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more author talks and bookseller conversations. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you back in our store soon.
I see